The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. The walls were made of black stone that seemed to swallow light. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a single platform in the center, where any species called to speak would stand alone under the gaze of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Ho stood on that platform now. He was a man of 50 years with gray streaks in his black hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, he had spoken in this hall many times before, but something felt different today. The air was thick with tension, and the representatives of 100 different species watched him with expressions that ranged from pity to amusement. High Counselor sat at the highest seat, looking down at the human like a predator watching prey. Was a species that resembled tall, thin insects with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected light in disturbing ways. They had ruled the council for 300 years and had held the position of High Counselor for the last 40. Ambassador Ho said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. The council has called you here today to discuss a matter of great importance. Ho gave a small bow of his head. I am honored to serve, High Counselor. How may Earth assist the council? A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the chamber. Ho noticed it but kept his face neutral. He had learned long ago that showing emotion in this place was seen as weakness. Raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter stopped immediately. The Council has reviewed humanity's activities over the past 50 years since your species joined galactic society. We have noted your rapid expansion, your growing trade networks, and your increasing influence among the younger species. We are grateful for the opportunities the Council has provided, Ho replied carefully. Indeed. His compound eyes seemed to glitter with dark amusement. The Council has also noted that humanity has benefited greatly from galactic technology, trade routes, and protection. Your species has grown wealthy and powerful under our guidance. Ho felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. He had been in politics long enough to know when a trap was being set. Earth has always paid its fair share of council fees and followed all regulations. Fair share, repeated, and this time the laughter from the chamber was louder and more cruel. Ambassador, the council has decided that humanity's contributions have been insufficient. A holographic display appeared in the air above Ho's head. Numbers and graphs filled the space, showing Earth's trade income, resource production, and technological development. Then another set of numbers appeared beside them, and Ho felt his heart skip a beat. The Council hereby demands that Earth pay a tribute of 30% of all annual resource production, announced. Additionally, humanity will share all technological developments with the Council before implementing them. This tribute will continue for a period of 100 years. The chamber fell silent. Even the representatives who had been laughing before seemed shocked by the size of the demand. 30% of Earth's resources would cripple their economy. Sharing all technology first would end their independence completely. Ho took a slow breath before speaking. High Counselor, this demand is unprecedented. No species has ever been asked to pay such a tribute. No species has ever grown so quickly or posed such a potential threat to galactic stability, replied smoothly. The Council must protect the balance of power that has kept peace for thousands of years. With respect, Earth has never threatened anyone. We have been peaceful members of the galactic community. Leaned forward in his seat. The Council does not wait for threats to become real, Ambassador. We prevent them before they can occur. This tribute is not punishment, it is insurance. Ho looked around the chamber, searching for allies. He found none. The who traded heavily with Earth looked away. The who had signed a mutual defense treaty with humanity just 10 years ago suddenly found their feat very interesting. Even a species that humans had helped save from a plague, could not meet his eyes. And if Earth refuses, Ho asked quietly, The question hung in the air like smoke. His compound eyes narrowed with something that might have been pleasure. If Earth refuses, your species will be cut off from all galactic trade. No ship will be allowed to dock at any council station. No species will be permitted to buy or sell goods with humanity. Your colonies outside your home system will be quarantined. In short, Ambassador, Earth will be completely isolated until you agree to our terms. Ho understood now why he had been called here alone, without time to prepare or consult with Earth's government. They wanted to pressure him into making a quick decision, to catch humanity off guard. "How long does Earth have to respond?" he asked. "You misunderstand, Ambassador. We do not want a response from Earth," stood up from his seat, all four arms spread wide. "We want your answer, now, here, in front of the entire council." The trap was complete. If Ho said yes, he would be agreeing to the destruction of Earth's independence. If he said no, he would be starting a conflict that could destroy his species. And if he asked for time, he would look weak in front of every power in the galaxy. Ho closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his home, about the green mountains and blue oceans of Earth. He thought about his daughter Min, who was studying to become a doctor. He thought about all the humans who were counting on him to protect their future. When he opened his eyes, his voice was steady. "I need to consult with my government. This decision is too important for one person to make." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Very well, Ambassador. You have 3 days, but understand this. The Council's patience is not unlimited. If Earth does not agree to our terms, the consequences will be severe." Ho bowed once more and turned to leave the great hall. As he walked toward the massive doors, he could feel thousands of eyes on his back. Some were mocking, others were curious, and a few held something that might have been hope. He did not look back. He had 3 days to save his species, and he intended to use every second of them. The doors closed behind him with a sound like thunder, and Ho allowed himself one moment of fear before he straightened his shoulders and began walking toward the communications center. Earth needed to know what was coming, and they needed to know now. The emergency meeting room deep beneath the mountains of Korea was filled with the most powerful people on Earth. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and admirals sat around a massive circular table, their faces lit by holographic displays showing the council's demands in cold blue light. Ho stood at the head of the table, having just finished explaining everything that happened in the great hall. The room was silent for a long moment after he finished speaking. Admiral was the first to speak. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and silver hair cut short in military style. At 62 years old, she commanded the entire Earth Defense Fleet, and her voice carried the weight of someone who had faced death many times. 30% of our resources would gut our military capabilities, she said flatly. We would be defenseless within a decade. Defense Minister Dong nodded grimly. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s who had spent his entire life serving Earth's military and government. And sharing our technology first means we could never develop anything that might threaten them. They would simply ban anything that made us stronger. "It is not just about military power," said Finance Minister Jin, a woman known for her brilliant mind and cold calculations. 30% of our resources would collapse our economy. Millions would lose their jobs. Our colonies would starve. This is not a tribute. It is slow death. The room erupted in voices, everyone speaking at once. Some called for immediate acceptance to avoid war. Others demanded military action. A few suggested trying to negotiate better terms. Ho raised his hand, and slowly the room fell quiet again. "I have served as ambassador for 15 years, he said. "I have watched the council deal with dozens of species, and I can tell you with complete certainty that this is not a negotiation. They do not want 30% of our resources. They want us to know our place. They want every species in the galaxy to see humans bow down and accept that we are lesser beings. Then we have no choice, someone muttered from the back of the room. We must accept. No, Admiral's voice cut through the air like a blade. I refuse to accept that. She stood up from her seat and walked to the center of the room, where a holographic display showed Earth and its colonies. Let me tell you something about humans, she said. We have been fighting against impossible odds since we first climbed down from trees. We fought ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. Every time someone told us to surrender, every time someone said we had no choice, we found a way to survive. This is different, said a voice from the table. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They have crushed hundreds of species that opposed them. And how many of those species had humanity's stubbornness? Asked. How many of them had our creativity, our ability to adapt, our refusal to accept defeat? Defense Minister Dong leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting, Admiral? Turned to face the entire room. I am suggesting we say no. We tell the Council that Earth will not pay their tribute, will not share our technology, and will not bow to their threats. The room exploded again, but this time the voices were different. There was fear, yes, but also something else. Something that sounded almost like excitement. Ho watched his colleagues argue and felt something shift in his chest. He had been carrying the weight of this decision since he left the council chamber, but suddenly it felt lighter. If we refuse, he said loudly enough to quiet the room, the council will cut us off from galactic trade. Our economy will suffer terribly. Our people will face hardship. Yes, agreed. But we will face it as free people, not as slaves paying tribute to masters who see us as inferior. Dong stood up beside her. I have spent my life preparing Earth for the possibility of war with the Council. We always knew this day might come. We are not as weak as they think. What do you mean? Asked President Park, who had been listening quietly until now. Dong smiled grimly. The Council believes we are a young, helpless species that cannot survive without them. But for the past 30 years, we have been quietly preparing for exactly this situation. We have built secret shipyards, developed technologies we never revealed to the Council, and made friends with species who are also tired of being treated as lesser beings. You kept this from the government, someone demanded. I kept this from anyone who might accidentally reveal it to the Council, Dong replied without apology. Earth's survival required absolute secrecy. Now that secrecy will save us. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Ho looked at Dong with new respect. The man had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized. Even so, Ho said carefully, we cannot win a direct war against the Council. Their fleet is 100 times the size of ours. We do not need to win a war, replied. We just need to survive long enough to show the galaxy that the Council can be. Other species are watching us right now, waiting to see what we do. If we submit, they will lose hope forever. But if we stand firm... She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. President Park stood slowly, her face showing the weight of the decision before her. She was a woman who had led Earth through difficult times before, but nothing like this. We have 3 days, she said. Let us use them to prepare everything we can. Then we will give the Council our answer. Ho nodded. What answer should I bring them? President Park looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. She saw fear there, but she also saw determination. She saw the same stubborn refusal to surrender that had carried humanity through every crisis in its history. Tell them, she said slowly, her voice growing stronger with each word, that Earth does not pay tribute. Tell them that humans do not bow to threats, and tell them that if they want to take what is ours, they will have to fight every man, woman, and child on this planet and every colony we have built. We would rather die free than live as slaves. The room was silent for a moment, and then Admiral began to clap. One by one, others joined her until the entire room was filled with the sound. Ho felt tears forming in his eyes, but he blinked them away. There was no time for emotion now. He had a message to deliver, and it would change the galaxy forever. 3 days later, he stood once again on the central platform of the Great Hall, surrounded by thousands of alien eyes. "The Council has our answer," said, his voice dripping with confidence. "What has Earth decided?" Ho looked up at the High Counselor and smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that made his compound eyes narrow with sudden uncertainty. "No," Ho said simply. The word echoed through the massive chamber like a gunshot. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. "No," repeated, as if he had not understood. "No," Ho said again, his voice stronger now. "Earth refuses your tribute. Earth refuses your demands, and Earth refuses to be afraid of you anymore." The shockwave that spread through the chamber at that moment would be felt across the entire galaxy for generations to come. The Council's response came within hours of Ho's refusal. Across the galaxy, at every space station, trade port, and communication relay, the same message appeared. By order of the Galactic Council, all trade with humanity was forbidden. Any species caught buying from or selling to Earth would face severe punishment. Within a week, Earth's trade routes went silent. Ships that had been carrying goods between human colonies and alien worlds turned back empty. Factories that depended on alien materials shut down. Millions of workers suddenly found themselves without jobs. High Counselor watched reports of the growing chaos on Earth with satisfaction. He had seen this before with other rebellious species. First came economic pain, then civil unrest, then desperate pleas for mercy. Humanity would be no different. They would come crawling back to the Council within months, ready to accept any terms just to survive. But as weeks passed, something strange began to happen. Instead of collapsing, humans started adapting. On Earth, Admiral converted military shipyards into cargo haulers. Defense Minister Dong revealed stockpiles of resources that had been secretly gathered over 30 years. Finance Minister Jin restructured the entire economy to focus on self-sufficiency rather than galactic trade. It was difficult, people suffered, but they did not break. More importantly, humanity was not as alone as the Council believed. Ambassador Ho had spent years building relationships with species that were unhappy with Council rule. Now those relationships began to pay off. There were a small, peaceful species known for their skill in agriculture. For centuries, they had been forced to sell their food to Council species at prices far below what it was worth. When human trading ships appeared in their space with fair offers and respectful treatment, they did not hesitate to accept. "We have always been treated as servants," the leader told Ho during their first official meeting. "Your species treated us as equals. That is worth more than any threat from the Council." There were next. Humans had saved their species from a terrible plague 10 years earlier, sending doctors and medicine when the Council refused to help. Now they repaid that kindness by opening their space lanes to human ships. One by one, other species joined what became known as the Human Alliance. Despite their cowardice in the Council chamber, secretly began selling minerals to Earth. A species of brilliant engineers who had been held back by Council regulations offered to share their knowledge in exchange for freedom from oppression. Within 6 months, Earth had built a new trade network that operated completely outside Council control. Was furious when he learned what was happening. He called an emergency meeting of the Council and demanded immediate action. "These humans are poisoning the galaxy against us," he declared, his 4 arms waving in anger. "They are building an empire of rebels and malcontents. We must crush them now before they become too strong." But the Council was divided. Some supported its call for military action. Others worried about the cost of war against a species that had proven far more resourceful than expected. A few quietly wondered if perhaps the Council had made a mistake in pushing humanity so hard. The blockade was supposed to break them, one counselor said. Instead, it has made them stronger. Perhaps we should consider a different approach. There is no other approach, snapped. If we show weakness now, every species in the galaxy will think they can defy us. We must make an example of these humans. In the end, the Council voted to tighten the blockade and increase patrols around human space, but they stopped short of declaring war. Not yet, anyway. On Earth, the news of the Council's decision was met with grim determination. Admiral called a meeting of military leaders to discuss their options. The Council fleet has positioned 50 warships around our borders, she reported. They are not attacking, but they are watching everything we do. 50 warships, Dong repeated thoughtfully. That is less than we expected. The Council is still hopping. We will surrender without a fight, Ho said. They do not want a war any more than we do. Then we continue as we have been, Admiral decided. We build our strength, grow our alliance, and wait for the right moment. The right moment came 3 months later. A young human captain named One was commanding a small cargo ship near the edge of human space when she detected a distress signal. It was coming from a vessel that had been attacked by pirates. Under Council law, helping a species that was not officially allied with humanity could be considered an act of aggression. One knew the risks. She also knew that there were 50 crew members on that ship who would die if no one helped them. She made her decision in less than a second. Her cargo ship was not designed for combat, but one had been trained by Admiral herself. She used her ship's speed and maneuverability to draw the pirates away from the vessel, then led them on a chase through a nearby asteroid field where their larger ships could not follow. By the time Council patrol ships arrived, the pirates had fled and the crew was safe. But they also found a human ship in restricted space, having violated the blockade. The Council demanded that Earth surrender Captain One for trial and punishment. They expected humanity to sacrifice one person to avoid further conflict. Instead, President Park made a public broadcast that was seen across the galaxy. Captain One saved 50 innocent lives, she said, her voice steady and clear. She did what any decent being would do. She showed compassion to those in need, regardless of political consequences. Earth will not punish her for being a hero. We will celebrate her. The broadcast spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 100 different worlds, beings of all species watched a human leader defend her people's right to help others. Many of them had been told their whole lives that the Council's laws were absolute and unquestionable. Now they saw that there was another way. Within weeks, the human alliance doubled in size. Captain One became a symbol of everything humanity stood for: courage, compassion, and the refusal to let fear control their actions. Songs were written about her. Children on distant worlds played games where they pretended to be her. And on the Council station, High Counselor stared at reports of the growing alliance with something he had never felt before in his long life: fear. The blockade that was supposed to destroy humanity had instead made them heroes. The isolation that was supposed to weaken them had instead united them with species across the galaxy. Everything the Council did to hurt humans seemed to only make them stronger. For the first time, began to wonder if perhaps the Council had underestimated these strange beings from the small blue planet. He was right to wonder. The worst was yet to come. High Counselor sat alone in his private chamber, staring at intelligence reports that made his forearms tremble with anger. For months, he had been watching humanity build their little alliance, confident that it would eventually collapse. Rebellions always failed. The Council always won. This was the way of the galaxy. But something was wrong. The human alliance was not weakening. It was growing stronger every day. Worse, his spies had discovered something that turned his confidence into cold terror. Humans had technology that should have been impossible. For 30 years, while they smiled and traded and pretended to be grateful members of galactic society, humans had been secretly developing weapons and systems that exceeded Council standards. Their ships were faster than they should be. Their shields were stronger. Their communication systems used methods that Council scientists could not even understand. How had they done it? The Council monitored all technological development among member species. Nothing should have escaped their notice. The answer came from an unexpected source. A spy managed to capture a human scientist named Dr. Min, a woman who had been working on a secret research station hidden in a remote asteroid field. Under interrogation, she revealed the truth. "You never understood us," Dr. Min said, her voice calm despite her situation. "You saw our technology and thought you knew our limits, but humans have always hidden their greatest achievements from those who might use them against us. We learned that lesson long ago from wars fought on our own world." "What achievements?" the spy demanded. Dr. Min smiled. "We developed faster-than-light communication 30 years ago. We created energy shields that can withstand anything your fleet can throw at us. And we built ships that can outrun your fastest vessels, all in secret, all while you thought you were watching us." The spy reported this information to immediately. At first, the High Counselor refused to believe it. But as he reviewed the evidence, as he watched recordings of human ships performing maneuvers that should have been impossible, he was forced to accept the truth. Humanity had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized. Called an emergency session of the Council to share this revelation. The reaction was exactly what he expected: fear, anger, and demands for immediate military action. "We must destroy them now," insisted Counselor, a massive who had always supported the hardest measures against rebellious species, "before they become too powerful to stop." "And how do you suggest we do that?" asked Counselor, a elderly who had been growing increasingly uncomfortable with the Council's actions against humanity. "If their technology is truly superior to ours, a direct attack would be suicide." "Their technology cannot be that advanced," argued. "They are a young species. They have only been in space for a few centuries. And in those few centuries, they have achieved what took us thousands of years," replied quietly. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves why that is, instead of simply trying to destroy them." The debate raged for hours. Some counselors wanted war. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested that perhaps the original tribute demand had been a mistake that could still be corrected. But while the council argued, something else was happening across the galaxy. News of humanity's secret technology spread like fire through dry grass. Species that had been afraid to join the human alliance suddenly found their courage. If humans could hide such achievements from the Council for so long, perhaps the Council was not as all-knowing as it claimed. Perhaps there was hope for freedom after all. They were the first major power to defect. They were a warrior species who had served the Council as soldiers for generations, fighting the Council's wars and dying for causes that were not their own. When their leader, General, learned about humanity's technological achievements, he made a decision that shocked the galaxy. "For too long, my people have been slaves with weapons," announced in a broadcast that reached every corner of civilized space. "We have fought and died at the Council's command, never questioning, never thinking. But the humans have shown us another way. They have proven that the Council can be, that freedom is possible. From this day forward, the stand with humanity." The defection of they was a devastating blow to Council power. Their warriors had been the backbone of the Council's military strength for centuries. Without them, the Council's ability to enforce its will was severely weakened. More defections followed. They officially joined the Human Alliance, bringing their medical knowledge and pharmaceutical production. They contributed their engineering skills. Even some, disgusted by its leadership, quietly began to support the human cause. On Earth, Admiral watched these developments with careful optimism. She knew that the alliance was growing stronger, but she also knew that the Council would not accept defeat easily. "We'll try something desperate," she warned during a meeting with Earth's leadership. "He has spent his entire life ruling the galaxy. He will not give up that power without a fight." "What can he do?" asked Defense Minister Dong. "His fleet is weakened. His allies are abandoning him. Even many no longer support him." "That is exactly what makes him dangerous," replied. "A cornered predator is the most deadly kind." Her warning proved accurate. 2 weeks later, Council forces attacked a human colony on the outer edge of the Alliance territory. The attack came without warning, without declaration of war. 3 Council warships simply appeared in orbit and began firing on civilian targets. The colony of New Haven had a population of 50,000 humans and nearly 10,000 aliens who had fled Council oppression. In the first hour of the attack, over 2,000 people died. But then something unexpected happened. A human defense fleet arrived, led by Admiral herself. Their ships were smaller than the Council warships, but they moved with speed and precision that the Council commanders had never seen before. Within minutes, all 3 attacking ships were disabled and captured. Admiral's message to the captured commanders was broadcast across the galaxy. "You came here to murder innocent people," she said, her voice cold as ice. "You thought you could destroy us because we are smaller and weaker, but you were wrong. Humanity does not seek war with the Council, but if war comes to us, we will defend ourselves, and we will win." The broadcast showed images of the captured ships, of the Council commanders being treated with dignity despite their crimes, and of the human colonists helping to rescue survivors from the attack. It was a message of strength and compassion combined. It told the galaxy that humanity would not start wars, but they would finish them. It showed that even in victory, humans treated their enemies with honor. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, species that had been waiting to see which side would win now made their choice. The human alliance grew from dozens of members to hundreds almost overnight. High Counselor watched his empire crumbling and knew that he had made the greatest mistake of his long life. He had looked at humanity and seen only a young, weak species that could be easily controlled. He had never imagined that they might be something far more dangerous. He had never imagined that they might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so empty. Where thousands of representatives once sat in judgment of lesser species, only a few hundred remained. The seats of those were vacant. The section stood dark and silent. Even many seats were empty, their occupants having quietly defected to the growing human alliance. High Counselor sat in his elevated chair, looking down at the ruins of 10,000 years of Council rule. His compound eyes were dull, his 4 arms hung limp at his sides. He looked like what he was, a defeated leader watching everything he had built crumble to dust. Ambassador Ho stood once again on the central platform, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives of over 300 species, members of the human alliance that had grown to rival the Council itself in power and influence. "High Counselor," Ho said, his voice echoing through the half-empty chamber. "The human alliance requests formal negotiations for a new galactic order." His mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. "Requests? Your alliance has half the galaxy under its influence. You have warships that our fleet cannot match. You could simply destroy us and take whatever you want. Why negotiate?" Ho smiled, and it was a gentle smile, not one of triumph or mockery, "because that is not who we are." He stepped forward, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive hall. "When the Council demanded tribute from Earth, we refused. Not because we wanted war, but because we would not accept being treated as lesser beings. When you blockaded our planet, we did not attack. We built new friendships instead. When your forces murdered innocent people on New Haven, we captured your ships instead of destroying them and treated your soldiers with dignity instead of revenge." He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans do not want to rule the galaxy. We never did. We only wanted to be treated as equals. Now we ask for that same equality for every species that has joined us. Leaned forward, his compound eyes searching Ho's face for signs of deception. "You could have everything. You could be the new rulers of the galaxy. Why would you settle for mere equality?" "Because we have learned from history," Ho replied. "Our own history. For thousands of years, humans fought wars against each other. Empires rose and fell. Tyrants conquered and were overthrown. And through all that suffering, we learned one simple truth. Power that is taken by force must be held by force. It requires constant violence, constant fear, constant oppression. That is not the future we want." He gestured to the representatives behind him. "These species joined us not because we conquered them, but because we offered them something the Council never did: respect, partnership, hope. That is worth more than all the military power in the galaxy." The hall was silent. Even the remaining council members seemed moved by Ho's words. Admiral stepped forward to stand beside the ambassador. Her uniform was simple, her bearing proud, but there was no aggression in her stance. "The Human Alliance proposes a new galactic charter," she announced. "One that guarantees equal rights and representation for all species, regardless of age or power. Trade will be free and fair. Technology will be shared for the benefit of all. No species will be forced to pay tribute or serve masters they did not choose." "And what of the Council?" asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What of us?" "The Council can join the Alliance as equal members," Ho said. "Or they can remain separate, governing only those worlds that choose to stay with them. We will not force anyone to join us. That would make us no better than what we opposed." Sat back in his chair, his mind struggling to understand what was happening. He had expected conquest. He had expected revenge. He had expected humans to do exactly what every other powerful species had done throughout galactic history: use their strength to crush their enemies and rule over the weak. Instead, they offered forgiveness, partnership, a chance to start again. "Why?" he finally asked. "After everything the Council did to your species, after the tribute demands, the blockade, the attack on your colony, why would you offer us anything but destruction?" Ho was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because destruction is easy. Anyone can destroy. It takes real strength to build something new. It takes courage to offer peace to those who hurt you." He looked up with eyes that held no hatred, only determination. "We are not doing this for the Council. We are doing this for the galaxy. For all the species who have suffered under fear and oppression. For future generations who deserve better than endless cycles of violence and revenge." President Park, who had traveled from Earth to witness this historic moment, stepped forward to speak. "Humanity has made many mistakes in our history. We have fought wars, committed atrocities, and caused suffering to our own people and our own world. But we have also learned. We have grown. And we have finally reached a point where we can choose a different path." She looked around the great hall, her eyes meeting the gaze of every representative present. "Today, we choose hope over fear, cooperation over conquest, equality over domination. This is our answer to the Council's demands: not revenge but renewal, not victory but partnership." The silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, Counselor of the stood up from her seat. "They have already joined the Human Alliance," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "But speaking for myself, I wish to say that I am proud to stand with humanity. Not because they are powerful, but because they have shown us what true strength looks like." One by one, other counselors rose to speak. Some expressed gratitude. Others asked for forgiveness for their role in the Council's actions against humanity. A few remained silent, unable to accept the change that was sweeping through the galaxy. Finally, himself stood. His forearms were steady now, his compound eyes bright with an emotion that none of his people had seen in him before. "I have ruled the council for 40 years," he said slowly. "I have made decisions that affected billions of lives. I believed I was preserving order, protecting stability, doing what was necessary for the good of the galaxy. I was wrong." He descended from his elevated seat, step by step, until he stood on the same level as Ho. It was the first time in council history that a high counselor had lowered himself to meet another species as an equal. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept the Human Alliance's proposal," said, "and I offer my personal apology to Ambassador Ho and all of humanity for the injustice we attempted to inflict upon your species." Ho extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship, hesitated for only a moment before reaching out with one of his 4 arms to accept it. The image of that handshake spread across the galaxy within hours. It appeared on screens and broadcasts on a million different worlds. It became the symbol of a new era, a new hope, a new beginning. The old order had fallen. The Human Alliance had not conquered the galaxy. They had changed it, not through war but through example, not through fear but through hope. And the shockwave of that change would be felt for generations to come. As Ho walked out of the Great Hall for the last time, he thought about his daughter Min, who had become a doctor helping heal wounds on both sides of the old conflict. He thought about Captain One, whose simple act of courage had inspired millions. He thought about all the humans who had refused to surrender, refused to give up hope, refused to become the monsters they were fighting against. They had started as a small species on a little blue planet, unknown and insignificant in a vast and ancient galaxy. Now they had helped build something new, something better, something that would give every being in the galaxy a chance at freedom and equality. This was humanity's greatest achievement. Not technology, not power, not conquest. Compassion. And the galaxy would never be the same.